get started, and I'll go ahead and introduce you to our speaker tonight. Her name is Alexandra Valdes. She's the executive director to LANAIC. So Alexandra Valdes is an enrolled tribal citizen of the Central Council of Tlingit and Haida Indian Tribes of Alaska and a descendant of the Athabascan. Alexandra is the mother of 2 children, ages 5 and 2, and she has dedicated her career to working for organizations that empower American Indian and Alaska Native communities. She currently serves as executive director of the Los Angeles City County Native American Indian Commission, also known as LANAIC, which is a joint advisory commission for LA City and the County of Los Angeles. She serves on various county, city, and community initiatives, including the LA County Anti-Racism, Diversity and Inclusion Work Group, the LA County COVID-19 Vaccine Work Group and Equity Subcommittee, the City of Los Angeles Civic Memory Project Land Acknowledgement Subcommittee, and the Natives in LA COVID Response Working Group. So welcome, Alexandra. I'm thankful you're able to carve out some time to join us for tonight, and I'm excited to hear you discuss about your organization, LANAIC, which is celebrating a big year. It's the 45th anniversary, so welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And good evening to everyone on the line. I feel really fortunate to share about the Los Angeles City County Native American Indian Commission, especially during this special year being our 45th, and hopefully shed light on our commission as well as what we do and be a resource in the future for folks on the line. So I look forward to attendees' questions and this conversation. So thanks again for having me.
Awesome. So we're just curious for those who may not know too much about LANAIC, maybe they're just tuning in. Can you talk more about what LANAIC and AIC does?
Absolutely. So it's a bit of a mouthful. So the commission, I'll say the commission for shorthand, was established in 1976 through a joint City of LA and County of Los Angeles ordinance. And it came at the behest of the Native community and advocates, really demanding during that era of self-determination resources and a dedicated body to help advocate for our Native community here in Los Angeles, both local tribal communities as well as folks who were relocated many times forcibly and sometimes voluntarily. I'm sure most folks on the line know that Los Angeles County is home to the largest urban American Indian Alaska Native population of any county in the country, and we're built upon the ancestral and unceded territory of the Tongva, Tataviam, and Chumash peoples. The commission does a lot. So in its origins, we are a joint citizens advisory commission. So really there to help guide and uplift the concerns of our community to our elected officials, both on the city and the county side. But the work has really developed and expanded over the past 45 years as the place of Native peoples in society and how society responds to us has really grown and changed. So a lot of the work that the commission works on is combating erasure, whether that's advocating for the proper collection of data and reporting of data for our community so that our our needs are known, because without that, we can't rely on incomplete or inaccurate data. And really making sure that we're visible in our county and city. As folks probably know, we're a non-geographically concentrated community. Our community has high rates of being multi-ethnic, multi-racial, and so many times that leads to our erasure. That's further, impacted by the fact that our local tribes here in Los Angeles County are not federally recognized and have been dispossessed of their entire land base. So there's so many initiatives that we've embarked on around combating false narratives. So a couple years back, before I came on the commission, in partnership with community, we're able to have the city and the county remove Columbus Day and replace it with Indigenous Peoples Day. And that came really off the heels of decades and decades of community activism. That was followed by the removal of the Columbus statue in Grant Park. And we're currently on the county side working on addressing the vast barriers that Native peoples face when trying to access county-owned lands for cultural, traditional, and sacred practices. So that work's unfolding. The draft report's on our website if you want to take a look. But yeah, the work is really, I think at the core is really ensuring that we're visible and our needs and concerns are visible so that we're getting the proper resources to meet those.
Thank you. Yeah, for sure. I do work as the librarian at the American Indian Resource Center, and a lot of questions, especially for those who are non-native, they do ask like, are there still Native people? Of course, there are. And you mentioned that changing Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day, and then also removing the Columbus statue in Grand Park. After all that work, and it was a lot of work. Did you find that people were more willing to accept that there was Native people, or were they more open, and like has there been more media for that?
Yeah, sorry, I'm a little delayed because I'm keep unmuting. Yeah, I mean, I think all of that work is building to remove these false narratives that celebrate inaccurate histories, right? And really venerate figures that demean and demoralize Native peoples and our youth. And I think that all of that work, you know, has called more attention to our community, has made us more visible. And again, I think having these truth-telling initiatives are critical in uplifting the accurate histories, because most people, you know, most Americans don't have exposure to Native histories in their K through 12 education. So there's a lot of work to combat that. So I think any of these opportunities that are removing false narratives and putting in truth really help to, you know, shed light and make our community more visible. So I think absolutely. And I definitely think now in this really unique moment in time when our country and society is grappling with these very traumatic and, you know, awful parts of our history, I think, and really taking a deeper look into that and what it means as a society is also, I think Native peoples are really becoming more visible to other communities. And I think it's a really incredible moment, and our community leaders are just really seizing it. And I think that there's great work to come. And again, it's building off of centuries and decades of, you know, activism and advocacy and our ancestors. So it's pretty incredible.
Thank you. And just going off of the part where you know, erasure and just underrepresentation, can you tell us a little bit more about how COVID-19 highlighted a lot of the inequities in Los Angeles County and beyond, specifically in the American Indian community? And can you talk about the issues that came up and how LA and AIC are addressing these issues?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think we've all, you know, we're what, 17 months into this pandemic now. Um, and I think, you know, it really, we've seen across the country that it has exacerbated socioeconomic and health disparities for many communities of color and Native communities. Um, and unfortunately, it wasn't surprising, right? Going into the pandemic, our commissioners acknowledged that due to socioeconomic and health disparities, that this pandemic was poised to really negatively impact us. And we, knowing that, we were very proactive, and the commission stood up an ad hoc committee, which is now known as Natives in LA COVID Response Working Group. And that working group has been working in concert since, I want to say, the first thing was a webinar on Facebook, and it was like March 24th or 23rd of 2020. And every other week since then, more than 10 Native serving organizations have met to collaborate, to share about what we're hearing from our community, to ensure that we're providing the services they need, to find resources. We have done everything from looking for resources internally in the county to externally, whether it's diapers, wipes, formula, food boxes, feminine hygiene products, incontinence products like hygiene kits. We were finding it and connecting it to our community and ensuring that these trusted organizations who have built relationships were getting that out. You know, then we ended up going into more realizing that trusted messengers were the key to really ensure that our community, who does have a historical mistrust of government and the medical field, was getting the right information from voices that they would listen to. So last summer, that working group put together this beautiful PSA that you can find on our website. Perhaps Katrina can drop it into the chat. But it was a PSA that was born out of love for community by community to help share and reinforce, social distancing, mask wearing, and really was grounded in this sentiment of for our families, for our futures, of reminding everyone that although this was tiring and frustrating, that we were making these decisions for our community and for the future generations to come, and that our ancestors have given us the strength to do that. So it was this really beautiful PSA that I hope everyone has seen or gets to see tonight if you check out our website. And I think the message still really resonates today in this iteration of the pandemic as it keeps evolving. So, and then most recently, that work group stood up 2 mobile testing events targeted to the American Indian Alaska Native community. Those took place in May at LA State Historic Park in partnership with Kedron Health Center, Supervisor Solis, and a many Native American serving organizations. And we provided a bunch of different things to distribute, as well as a safe and trusted space to receive the vaccine or to come and ask questions, to address hesitancy, and to gain more, readily accessible information from individuals that they might trust more than a pamphlet or another PSA. So, and we'll keep evolving as we go into recovery, and we're changing, refocusing all the time. What is the most imminent need of our community, and how can we meet that and ensure that we're connecting those resources?
The PSA was really, I think, amazing. I got really excited because I was following LANAIC on Facebook and I saw it. So I was really excited, and like the staff at ARC was totally excited. But if you haven't seen it, check it out. Katrina, she just dropped it in the chat, and there's also COVID-19 resources there for the Native community. But yeah, it's a must see PSA, and it's really nice. And I know previously we were talking about it. You had mentioned that it was shared on like ABC News, right? So that's huge.
Yeah, that was really huge. That was, I think our first hope was just creating something that resonated with community. And then we ended up getting it placed on KEBC 7, which was really incredible. And it wasn't couched in like awful times of the day. It was running at like 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. And, we were hearing from community members how incredible it was to see Native people on ABC, like in the middle of the day or, during dinner time. And that was another kind of benefit of this, was that, seeing folks who look like you on television when you don't see that is really profound. And they ran it for months. I don't think it's running anymore, but they ran it for months, and it was truly phenomenal. We also had it run on FNX, which was really amazing, and some other local, like public access. And, it was spread and shared on social media by our community, like by far and away the most shared thing that we've ever created. So, and again, we created this in partnership with all of the working group organizations who committed financial resources to it and really made this dream a reality.
Yeah, that's awesome. So good work. So on that note, can you talk more about some of the other initiatives that LANAC has?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the work that evolves for the commission is directed from various elected officials, as we are a city and county commission. And one of the initiatives that we're currently working on was born out of the Indigenous Peoples Day 2020 board motion. So the board motion 1 celebrated Indigenous Peoples Day, proclaimed that day in October of last year, Indigenous Peoples Day, but also used that board motion. So that's, for folks who don't know, that's how, the county moves action forward. Use it as an opportunity to move an action item from the countywide sustainability plan forward. And that sustainability plan action was about addressing barriers to accessing county-owned lands for cultural, traditional, and ceremonial practices. So we're working in partnership with the Chief Sustainability Office, who's the lead on that work. And we've had a series of listening sessions, both preliminary to understand more about these barriers and what are the specifics, to then kind of walk those back to county policies, procedures, and operations that might be creating those. And then took that into a draft report, brought that back to community once more, and it's still online for folks who want to take a read and provide comments to us. There's instructions on how to do so on our website, and we're taking feedback through the 16th. It's been up for about 3 or 4 weeks already. So if you want to take a look and provide that feedback, we'd love that. And it's really about how, if we're dealing with equity, which is such a common and important word today, right? But equity in accessing parks isn't the same for all communities. Just because a park is open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. doesn't mean that people are able to use it in the ways they need to be able to use it. And, going back to the fact that this entire land base has been, the local tribes have been dispossessed of their entire land base, there is no dedicated space for them to access lands for cultural, traditional, ceremonial practices. So that's been a big part of the work that we're doing, is to kind of unpack that, figure out, make recommendations. On the city side, I don't know if folks saw, but we're a joint city advisory commission as well. And a couple weeks ago, Councilmember Mitch O'Farrell of the 13th District introduced a motion to call on the city to make a formal apology for the first time in history to the local tribes of this land for harm caused by the city. That's evolving as their process is different in terms of motions, but really promising in terms of looking like there could be a formal apology on the horizon from the city of Los Angeles for harm that they've caused to Native peoples of this land. I'm trying to think of other things we're working on. We're working on a board motion right now about looking into renaming the Christopher Columbus Highway. So again, combating these false narratives. I don't know if folks know, but the 10 freeway from California to Florida is known as is named the Christopher Columbus Transcontinental Highway. So that's also something we're working on with a variety of departments. So a lot of the work again comes back to combating erasure, uplifting true histories, because again, we need to be visible in order for our needs to be visible. I'm sure I'm missing a lot. I'm happy to drop my email into the chat too, so folks can follow up with me, and invite everyone to come to our meetings. They're the third Tuesday of every month. They're currently hosted virtually due to the pandemic and will be done so through September. But that's a great opportunity to, meet our 15 commissioners. 5 are appointed by the Board of Supervisors, 5 are appointed by the mayor's office, and 5 are elected by our Native community here in LA every 4 years through democratically held elections. If you're interested in running, our next election will be next fall. We'll probably have the application posted in October of 2022, but there's 5 seats that the Native community elects, and they do 4-year terms. So, but yeah, I encourage everyone to come out to our meetings, get to know our commissioners, who all just operate from a deep love of community.
Yeah, this is definitely a great opportunity for those who are feeling that their voices aren't heard. You can definitely make a change by joining or following LANAIC. So that's awesome. And I don't think you mentioned it yet in this program, but I remember you had commented that this is LANAIC and LANAIC is like the only commission like how it is, or one of a kind. So can you sort of explain that to our viewers?
Yeah, so in LA, we're really unique in the fact that there's only like, I think, 1 or 2 other bodies that are joint city county. So that makes us really unique. The fact that we also have community elected commissioners is also really unique, right? But yeah, I mean, there are some, you don't really see this type of body exist at a local government level. There's a couple examples, I believe North Dakota and maybe Flagstaff. But in terms of being a joint city county in the largest municipalities in the country, it's really, really unique. And again, I think the thing that makes this body so sets it apart is the fact that it really is born out of community advocacy. Like, the community mobilized in the 70s to demand that this body was created. And the city and the county listened and they created it. And now here we are 45 years later. 45 years of working tirelessly to advocate, hundreds of commissioners. There's many people who precede me in this role. I've only been in it for 3 years, 15th of the commission's life. But, it is, I think, the fact that the origins of it are so incredible and inspiring. And it really is, I think all our commissioners view it as really being a bridge between community and government. So government knows what our community needs are. So again, encourage everyone to come to our meetings and share and uplift concerns that you have. I'm always here. My email's in the chat. We want to hear back from community and be able to take that to our elected so they know what needs to be addressed for our residents.
Awesome. So I have a question for you regarding also your organization. In the past, there's been powwows and there's been events, and recently you talked about the vaccination drive recently. Are there any other upcoming events that you want to share in celebration of the 45th anniversary or anything planned?
Yes, we definitely anticipate events in October for Indigenous Peoples Day and in November for Native American Heritage Month. I think the commission hasn't taken a formal position on what that programming will look like. I think with the world being so uncertain right now, unfortunately, with the rise of cases with the Delta variant, I mean, my fingers are personally very tightly crossed that this doesn't evolve, but I think we're still kind of figuring out, will in person be safe and a good thing for our community, and just trying to get closer to that date and time to understand if we'll be doing in person. But I can say we'll definitely do virtual events if we're not able to do in person. The powwow at this point, I'm not certain if we'll be able to do that this year just due to timeline, not knowing if we'll be able to do that. I think our dream is that we would, as that really became a really beloved community event. Last year, we were in the 5th annual commission powwow. And for folks who don't know, a former commissioner, Commissioner Pat Lopez, really created this incredible event, which is the commission's powwow. And she was the brainchild behind it all. And she's no longer a commissioner, but she created just, I think, so many incredible memories for so many folks in LA through these events. Unfortunately, last year would have been our 5th, but due to the pandemic, but I think it's still something we want to figure out if we're able to do this year. And I'll keep everyone tuned in. And if you don't follow us on social media, I'll drop it in the chat as well. We tend to use our Instagram most frequently. It's a good place to stay tuned in. Also, we do a lot of like cross promotion of other community events and other Native organizations. So really good to stay connected with us on there to see what we're doing, what we have planned, as well as what other organizations in LA County are doing, because we always make sure we're cross promoting their events.
So LANAIC has been doing a lot, and what you describe is amazing work, and I love seeing that. But I imagine that your current position must be very busy, requires you to do a lot of things. Can you talk about your path to this leadership position and like what you do, and if you have any guidance for those who want to follow your footsteps or just advice on the future leadership of the Native community? Can you comment on that?
Sure, yeah. So just in terms of my personal trajectory, like was shared earlier in the program, even during my undergraduate internships, I always have worked for organizations that empower Native communities. So whether that was my own Alaska Native Corporation or an urban Indian health program in Seattle, where I was born and raised, I've been guided by my desire to help my community, and really took my own personal, professional, and education background, and that really kind of led me to this role. I feel really fortunate. Like this role doesn't exist everywhere, and I was actually a stay-at-home mom when this job posting came across my desk. I'm really fortunate. My brother also works for Los Angeles County, and he saw it and he thought about me. And I applied to it because it felt, wow, like this feels like the stars are aligning, like this weird moment where it's like, this resonates on all the levels, personal, professional, educational. I have a master's in public policy, so that like working in, public service is something I've always wanted to do and I went back to school to do. But working for Native people and being an urban Native person, it felt so right. And I can't believe that this position exists. I still pinch myself. It is such a privilege to be in this role. It's busy and there's so much, but it's truly just an amazing role to be in, especially in this moment in time. And the commissioners that I get to support are absolutely inspiring, and I learned so much. And I'm so like, I essentially have 15 mentors, which is pretty incredible. And I just think for folks like, and they're, I just recently actually had a couple of my best friend's students, former students over. They're starting their master's programs, and we were just kind of talking, and it felt weird to be on that side of things to give advice because I don't know what advice I can offer folks, but I just feel like when just stay focused on like what is driving, what are you passionate about? And stay focused on that and try to flush out the noise and things that are stressful because time's limited and you just got to focus on the good and uplifting community, and that can keep you inspired and make the stressful days really, really not stressful because you have the end in mind, which is community members and doing your part to make someone's life incrementally better. And I think that really helps to kind of block out the noise. And I think it's surrounding yourself with folks who are inspirational and like who can really relate. Like I said, I have mentors now on the commission. And it's just finding folks in your professional trajectory who will take the time to talk to you, to give you guidance, I think is so huge. And I've been really fortunate to be where I am because of people who've taken the time to help shape and craft and read my resume and give me the time of day to talk through what I'm really passionate about. And so I think find mentors, find people that care about you and keep them close.
Thank you. So in the past few years, we've seen an increase of Native representation in the media and official government positions. And now we have dePaola, who's the Secretary of Interior. What was your reaction when she was confirmed into her position?
That it was incredible, that it's about time. Yeah, I mean, it's just like seeing it all over. It just felt like this is how it's supposed to be. That is who should be leading that. It just felt full circle, and we've already seen what good comes from representation, right? On the 25th, she announced, the first time that they're standing up a federal Indian boarding school initiative. Like, would that have happened if she wasn't in that role? I'm not certain. And I think, just the way in which she is handling and leading that department is starkly different than predecessors. So I just think that it was exciting, it was moving, it was profound, and felt also like, who's next? Like keep it coming. Yeah, I just think that's, the beginning. And I think really she's going to keep that door open for so many more folks.
Yeah, and for those who may not know, this is very record-breaking. She's the first Native person to be in this position, and the Secretary of Interior is also in charge of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, also in charge of like public lands. So a lot of the lands are, I want to say, very important to Native people. That's under her, the Secretary of Interior. So it's very historic, and lots of people were extremely happy. And there's a lot of work for her, but also I think there's a lot of support from the Native communities and from others. So we're really excited to see what she has to offer, and hopefully good things will come. So now that we've asked some of our meat and potato questions, we have some fun, quick lightning rounds questions that don't feel too pressured if you don't have an answer. It's just fun to ask. So first question is, what book are you currently reading, or maybe the last book that you've read?
Yeah. So mother of two small children during a pandemic with very limited childcare. I'm not personally reading anything for myself, but definitely reading to my little girls. I have a newly 5-year-old and she's almost 2, so I just rounded up. But we're really intentional about the books that we read to our daughters as they're not only Alaska Native and white, they're also Mexican, Cuban, and African American. So we're very intentional about exposing them to all aspects of their background so they feel proud and they understand and they're connected. So some of the books we're reading or have read recently to the girls are We Are Water Protectors. So the illustrator is Cricket as well. And then also to, do our part to be intentional that they know whose lands they're on. So Wa'aka The Bird Who Fell in Love with the Sun by Cindy Alvitri. Just really making sure we're doing our part as visitors on this land, that our daughters know that first and foremost, I think is really important. The work is, there's always more work to be done, but we're doing our best to do early exposure and understanding so that they can help, and as my daughter's embarking in kindergarten, hopefully she'll bring those books with her too for classroom reading, and help spread to her teachers who probably don't know. So
Yeah,
that's
I like
kind of,
to.
oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
No. So that's kind of, we're just reading children's books around here.
That's awesome. So I would like to plug in that the library does have those titles. You can request them, especially at the American Indian Resource Center. And I was actually going to ask you about the We Are Water Protectors if you've read it, which you have. What's awesome is that the illustrator that you mentioned, she won Michaela Goad, I think that's how you pronounce it. She won the Caldecott medal for the 2021. So that's very, very prestigious award. So that's just amazing. And so it's nice to see that her work is, treasured, and just like the honor that she received is amazing. So what's also great too is there's more representation in publishing. It's still very little, but we're starting to see better representation. So that's really exciting. Next question. What was your favorite book as a child?
Ooh, favorite book as a child.
And
Oh
if you
my
don't have
gosh.
a favorite, you can list a few. I always tell people I don't have
Yeah.
a favorite.
I mean, I feel like I'm like so blank now because of like what I've been reading to them is like taken over in my brain. I'm trying to think of books. There was this book, and I can describe it in photos, but I can't remember the title, and maybe you've read it. But it was about two sisters, and one of them, they find this woman in the forest, and I can see this book playing out in my brain, and I'll find the title and I'll send it to you, and we can put it somewhere. But they meet a woman, and both of them feel kind of scared just because they just are a little scared by her, and she tells them to not like about going into this hen house and don't take the shiny eggs, because the shiny eggs, like, just listen to me, don't take them, they're covered in jewels, you're going to want them, don't take them, take the ones. And there were these uglier ones that weren't appealing, and one of the sisters didn't listen, and they ended up being like snakes and rats and all these things came out, and the one who did listen, it was like beautiful things came out of this other egg, and I'm blanking on the title. But another one that I liked when I was more like YA is The Ear, the Eye, and the Arm. I loved that book. I don't know if you've ever read it. I loved it in, like, I want to say when I was 11 or 12, but it's more of, I believe it's like a young adults, or yeah, like a YA book. But and definitely, like, I was into the Harry Potter series as well, like very deep into that. Have vivid memories of like tearing through the series and waiting for the next one. So
A lot of people will join you with that fandom. Again, for publishing, publishing has been great. Joy Harjo became the first Native U.S. Poet Laureate in 2019, which she's been honored for a total of 3 consecutive terms, which that's very rare. Have you read any of her work? If yes, which is your favorite? Oh, you're muted.
I was gonna say I haven't, and I think you're giving me some good homework to do. I also have, before we talked, other books that I have on my list to read. But I would like to know what to first dig into from your perspective.
Oh gosh.
And if there
There
isn't any,
there are a few. The most current one is the American Sunrise, and I'm always not so great remembering titles. And then the other one I really liked was something about, and then viewers, if you know, um, something about gods, and like I need to look it up. Katrina might be able to help, but we did it for our book club too. But there were some poems that resonated with me. And now I feel bad, but I don't remember the title. I just remember that was really good. And sorry, viewers, we'll get back to you on that. So both Alexandra and I don't have any book recommendations, but American Sunrise is really good. And I think that's what she won that was during her term, poet laureate term. So that's really cool.
there's
Next
a book
question.
that
Oh, I'm
I'm sorry,
sorry.
I was gonna say that there is a book that's on my list, especially as we're embarking in land access issues, and really just I've learned so much from local Tongva, Tataviam, and Chumash tribal members about land stewardship from their perspective, from their traditional values. So a book that's on my list is Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. I think I'm saying that right. I think everything I've heard is that it's absolutely phenomenal. And I think it's really timely for the work that I'm doing. Talks about, stewardship and the importance of stewardship and indigenous stewardship and reciprocity with land and caring for the land. And I think that we're at this point in time, obviously, with climate change, that we need to more than ever, center indigenous knowledge. It's more critical than ever. So that's definitely on my list. I don't know if anyone who's listening in tonight has read it, but
I heard that it's very popular and it circulates well at our center. So I think that would be a great choice for you. Did you have other ones that you wanted to share?
I do have a book that I have on the list for my 5-year-old because of the recent confirmation of the bodies at various residential schools in Canada, and we can only assume that that news will be coming out in short order in the United States. I think I really want to be intentional about sharing all of the histories of the land that we live on with my child. And one of the books that I was looking into is I'm Not a Number. I'm going to butcher the author's last name, but Jenny K. Dupuis, Dupuis, and Kathy Kaser is a book that I is in my cart because I think it's time to share with my daughter about that and to start to understand. And I've heard it's a great children's book about residential schools. So that is something that I'm also will be reading in short order.
There's a few out there that are children books that we have in the center, and the title is slipping through my mind. But I think there's like My Name Is Not Walden, I believe, but that's also a little if you want to like younger readers, that might be one that you want to gear to. But I Am Not a Number, that's definitely more information. So if you think your child is ready for that, that's a great book to share. So thank you for sharing your books.
There's a comment, and just to flag for you, sorry if I'm overstepping, but there's a comment from April Skinnis, question for you. Seven Fallen Nations, do you have that book?
We can get back to you, April, but we may have it. I'll just have to search, or if our lovely moderator can search that. And thank you, Katrina. On to our next question. Hopefully we'll hear back from Katrina. So another major achievement, have been awarded to two Native writers, Louis Erdrich, I think that's how you say it, her name, and Natalie Diaz. They won the Pulitzer Prize for The Night Watchman, and Natalie Diaz won for the poetry prize, post-colonial love poem. So have you read any of those? I'm assuming no, but that's fine.
I'm so deep out of the reading game. I feel like I'm the worst person for a library thing right now. I mean, I have been trying to keep my head above water for 17 months with working from home with 2 children. So I think I have my summer reading list. I am going to be on a little vacation for a few days off. So I think that the babies will be with their grandma and I will be by some body of water with a stack of books. But yeah, I believe there was a book, what is her title that has, I'm forgetting it, but with canoe in it. I think it was one of her early books, Burdick.
I know it was in the Roundhouse. There was like a Peace and Dove, or I'm like horrible at remembering titles, but she does have quite a few. She's a very prolific writer. But we do have a lot of her titles within our library system. So also for those who don't have time for reading, if you like audio, we do have audiobook option too. Yes, I should have pulled up some of her titles. Now I'm the one under the spot, right? But The Night Watchman, that one is based off of her grandfather, and pretty fascinating. And what's cool about Louise Erdrich is that she writes like multiple perspectives. So it reminds me of like, another book that some people may have read already is Tommy Orange, There. He writes with multiple perspectives. So if you like that, you'll probably like Louise Erdrich.
I was gonna say that's also on my reading list as you there is about the urban native perspective and experience. I also I'm from Seattle originally, and where Sherman Alexie lived for a long time, and was a professor for one of my friends. So I got to see him as a lecture one time, and his books and also his children's books are definitely really incredible and informative. And I'm Katrina, if you don't mind dropping in the chat his children's book, I believe there's a young author YA book, was really incredible.
The Absolutely Tree Dive, a Part-Time Indian. And
Yes,
then
yeah.
there was one that's like an adult book, but was also like seen also as a YA was Flight. But the Absolutely True Dive, a Part-Time Indian has been a lot of people connect to it. And even those who are reluctant readers, we've noticed, and older adults, they seem to really connect with the Absolutely True Dive, a Part-Time Indian. So yeah, that's a great recommendation.
I also shamelessly want to share about a friend and fellow tribal citizen, Alyssa London. She is a Tlingit, and she was a former Miss Alaska. She recently wrote a book called The Story of a Freckled Indian, I believe is the title. It's a children's book. It's about her experience as a multiracial Native person, who the world views in a certain way. But yeah, I don't think you guys have it yet, but I know that I think it's on Amazon, and
What was the title again?
it is. I'm going to drop it in the chat. I'm butchering the title, but I believe it's
Okay.
the
Oh, I'm sorry, you're breaking up for me.
and it's something like that. But look at it. Oh, can you hear? No? Can you hear me?
Yes. It might just be on my end too. Oh, not
Can you hear me now?
yes.
Okay, great. Sorry, let me tell you the title. But I think it's a really interesting story that folks might resonate with a lot of folks and youth too, as she is multiracial, and it's from that perspective as well, and the world, I will get the name and
Thank you. Okay, so I think it might be on my end.
into the chat for everyone. Uh-oh.
Okay.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes. I don't see your video though. Okay, so someone else commented that you're lagging a bit, but it's okay. I think we can still ask you a few questions. Audio seems to be okay. Okay. Alexandra? Okay. Well, while we wait for Alexandra to come back to us, Katrina let us know that the Seven Nations was that the title that April had asked earlier. We don't have that in our system, but I'm gonna see if it's possible to add to our collection. So thank you for that recommendation, April. And then also the book that Alexandra had mentioned. I'll see if we can get that into our collection as well.
Can you
And,
hear me now?
yes.
Okay, I'm sitting up over the router, so I apologize to everyone about that.
Cool. So we have a lot of everyone who's viewing this has a lot of reading to do, and I need to remember those titles that I've read before. But yeah, thank you for recommending those books and sharing some of the new titles that I haven't heard. But one last book question, and then we can go to Q&A. What native focused book would you recommend to others, or have you already recommended to us already?
Yeah, I was looking into I think it's really, really important right now for especially non-native people to start to learn about the history of boarding schools and residential schools. And before this call, I was trying to find one that I would recommend, and nothing really jumped out. So I actually am curious if the audience has any that they found to be very informative and that they think would be a good read for non-native folks who are starting to learn about this part of history that's been erased. At this point, I honestly think we shared a couple resources, both about a national organization for residential schools up in Canada, and as well as the national boarding school resources. And I think if we could drop those into the chat at the time, I know that those aren't books, but I really am curious from the audience too, as I'm, over the past month have really learned that a lot of folks have no idea about this history. And I think it's really important to be equipped with resources on hand to help people. It sucks to have to do that work, but I think having recommendations on how people can understand histories that our society has kept from them is really, really critical. And I think, thank you for dropping that into the chat, Katrina. But yeah, I think the National Native American Boarding School Healing Coalition's website is a really good starting point. And that it's all of our, responsibility to either learn or shed light on these histories that have been kept hidden and erased, but that still very much impact our community members today, who are sometimes survivors themselves, or grandchildren or children of survivors. That trauma lives amongst our community, and part of the healing is that the truth needs to be told.
So yeah, we actually pulled up some of the books that's in the American Indian Resource Center, and we do have some. So Katrina has shared that, and we have a comment from, I think, Rania, and she's saying thanks for the recommendation, and that she recommends a college history class, a book from a college history class, an Indigenous Peoples History of the United States. That's great. That's actually, there's an adult version, and then there's a children's, or I would say like a YA or like a tween version of it. So if you really like that book, you can get that for like a young reader to share. So thank you for the recommendation. Indian Horse, Orange Shirt Day, cool. So thank you for the recommendations. I was
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Phyllis, you shared about Orange, or but not Phyllis. Is it Waya? I'm sorry if I'm not saying that right, but is Orange Shirt Day nonfiction or fiction? Can you drop that in the chat? Oh, thank you. Okay, that another one, but I'm just curious if Orange Shirt Day is fiction or nonfiction.
And as a librarian, I want to say that Canada has been doing they have some like great publishers. Like I think the publishers are really promoting First Nation voices. So I'm hoping to see that more in the US as well. Like we're definitely seeing more, but let's get some more into our center that can add. So it's always been a little bit more difficult to find, Native voices. I'm not sure why. But we can make that happen by purchasing Native books. So support your local Native writer for sure, so we can get more quality books too. Let's see what they said. Viola Indians, Michelle Good. Oh, someone is commenting on your artwork.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, I got that at a local bookstore, believe it or not, the La Cañada bookstore, like 10 years ago. And it is these beautiful, sorry to take that, but it ties to bookstores and books. And it's this beautiful artist. He's First Nations. I believe he's deceased, but he did a lot in terms of printmaking and carving. And I'll drop his name in, and it was honestly one of the best finds of my life. There was like 15 of them, and I unfortunately gifted 12 of them away, but these have come with me in all my homes that I've lived in LA, and they're my favorite. Thank you for commenting, April. I'm going to drop his name in. His work is beautiful, both his print work and his carvings.
Yeah, this looks nice. Speaking of like illustrations and Native voices, I know you used to work for Sea Alaska, and they have Sea Alaska Corporation. They have this amazing line for books, for children's books. I think it's like Little Ravens. If you haven't checked that out, please do. They have like little board books for toddlers, and I think they have like Salmon Boy, I think that's what it's called. for the English name. So for those who want to include picture books for their child or for someone that you know, that's also a great, I don't know what you call a publisher, uh, company to get access books or access to books from. So very colorful illustration. So it's really nice.
Yeah, it's the Sealaska Heritage Institute is our nonprofit sister organization. And they have an incredible, I can't plug it, but take a look. They have a gift store and a bookstore online. And they also have this beautiful, and I'm sure it's going to pick up soon, but part of their programming too is they do a Little Ravens reading group. So they would do this series, and it was like it was story time, but for Alaska Native families to come with their little ones, and they had different age groups too to read Native authors. And I think it's just like it's a really beautiful program that they've hosted for years. So their program is called Little Ravens, and they also have the series to complement, but it's really, really wonderful. And I do want to share too, just in line of like illustrators and stuff, the US Postal Service has a new stamp coming out. I don't think it's out yet, but by Rico Worrell, who's also Tlingit. It's Raven, and it's beautiful. And that's coming, I think, sometime soon, but I definitely have my eye on those stamps.
Uh, so I know you talked about U.S. Postal, but minting the coin, the dollar coin, I think it's a dollar coin, but Elizabeth Petrovic, I think that's how you pronounce her name. She is minted on a dollar coin in honor of like the civil rights that she brought over to Alaska. So that's really cool. So a lot of great things are happening in Alaska or with Alaska descendants.
Yeah. And there was a question sorry to call it, but Linda asked a question. Do you mind if I start to respond?
Of course.
Can. So Linda asked, as a non-native, how can I support the Native community, like authors and artists? So I think there's a lot of ways, personally, I can't, as a government worker, direct you to go to any website or anything, but I think, artist markets are really important. The Autry hosts a really beautiful Native artist market every year. I think it's shifted. I'm not sure if they held it virtually due to the pandemic last year. I think, just ensuring that you're speaking to your Native friends, Native community to see, artists that they like, following people on Instagram, supporting people. A lot of people have pivoted to, Etsy and selling online. So I think, finding folks on social media, if that's something that you're interested in, is a great way to be connected and follow artists and support them and know about their, upcoming releases and works, etc. But again, not everyone loves social media. And I think broadly to support the Native community, I mean, we have incredible Native serving organizations here in Los Angeles County. We have, I'm not going to be able to say them all, but United American Indian Involvement is an absolutely treasured organization here for the county for both Native and non-Native people. I think there's always opportunities to support, whether there's volunteering or, donations and staying linked. Again, social media is a great way to see what their needs are and if they have giving periods, etc. Pacoo Cultural Community Service out in San Fernando. We have Indigenous Circle of Wellness as a private practice counseling center, but they've also started a recent nonprofit. That's a really incredible way to support them. And I look to other Native folks who are on the line to share, but I think there's always great opportunities is when you have the chance to support small businesses or artists, you should. And yeah, stay connected with them on social media if that's your thing. If not, I'm sure once things are up and running, and also make sure that, there's ways to know that it is like a Native artist. Sometimes people co-opt that for sales purposes, but I think asking those questions and making sure is really important so that you're supporting Native artists and not somebody who's claiming that is really important to do that due diligence.
I believe it's illegal. So
Yeah, it is, but it happens.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's unfortunate. Can you talk about or give any suggestions to people who may want to either volunteer or seek out to help with Native communities? Maybe the ones that you listed are they seeking volunteers?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's so many organizations, and again, I can't say them all, but there is, quite a few dedicated Native organizations, like I said, doing really important work. I think it's also important to support our LGBTQ plus Native community members who many times face another layer of erasure, and supporting organizations like LA Pride, LA Indigenous Pride, who supports that community, is really important. I think, again, no push to follow us on social, but I do my best to, cross promote about other organizations. So if you don't want to follow us, take a look at who we follow and start maybe following them. We tend to follow all the organizations. I think reaching out to, there's a lot of incredible advocacy work going on at our colleges and universities here, and following those student groups and Native student groups to see how you can support them, I think is really important. I think just being a good visitor on this land and doing your work in part to understand the histories and the contemporary realities of the Tataviam, Tongva, and Chumash peoples is really important. And seeing the needs that they have and just making sure that you're aware and being a respectful visitor on this land as we're all benefiting from it every day. And I think that's really super critical. There's so much that we can always do. But I think it's just being respectful to this land that we're all visiting on and doing our part. And when we have the time, really, really giving it and dedicating time and space to understanding histories that have been erased through the Native perspective, I think is critical. Finding Native authors, Native researchers, Native scholars, and getting your information that way is huge.
Thank you. I wanted to just point out that we did have, and it's recorded, a virtual event with the tribal president of the Fernandino Tataviam Band of Mission Indians, Rudy Ortega Jr. So if you are curious, we have that on our LA County Library Facebook YouTube page, so you can find that. But do you have any last words, Alexandra, that you want to share with our audience and those who may be viewing?
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to share something that I didn't touch on, but I want to make it really clear and have people know, like, the commission has another body called the Self-Governance Board, and they have administered the Community Service Block Grant Native American Set-Aside Funds since the early 1990s. CSBG, shorthand, is a federal poverty alleviating grant that's really rooted in community-based interventions to increase self-sufficiency. We currently have 3 subrecipient agencies administering community service block grant dollars to help Native people, to meet their needs. So currently, because of an executive order by the governor, to be eligible, you have to be at or below 200% federal poverty level and reside in Los Angeles County. The 3 organizations that have that funding and are offering a variety of services for people also impacted by COVID right now, and that could be financially or health-wise, rental assistance, food assistance, utility assistance. So if you or anybody that you know is in need of those supportive services, I highly encourage you to reach out to United American Indian Involvement or Pacu Cultural Community Services or Gabrielino Tongva Tribal Council. This pandemic has taken a toll on so many, and these organizations offer incredible services guided by love of community in a really supportive way. So just wanted to make sure people were aware, and if you're not personally in need, please help us spread the word. There's this money and the support there, and we just want to make sure people are being taken care of and are able to access critical services, to stay housed, to pay their bills, to keep their families fed. So I just want to make sure everyone's aware of that.
Thank you. It looks like I missed the audience question. Katrina, would you be able to ask that?
Sure, of course. I'm sorry. So someone asked, does LANAIC have any statistics pertaining to how many American Indians are homeless in LA County? Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you. And when you're talking about initiatives, homelessness is a huge initiative that the commission's been working on. Sorry, at the tail end of the day, my brain went a little bit blank. So when we're talking about erasure too, the homelessness count, unfortunately, provides this incredible undercount of our community. And I'm not sure how many folks are aware of how that's conducted, but essentially it's volunteers who are going out and counting people, right, and identifying their race for them, which proves incredibly problematic for our community. Back in 2018, I believe, the point in time count for homelessness said that there was roughly 500 homeless Native people in the entire county. That gave the commission great pause, as we know that unfortunately our community has high rates of all of the indicators that lead to homelessness, and so that number it's just not true. Like, that number just was not accurate. Unfortunately, since then, we've been advocating tirelessly for the proper collection of data, trying to truly understand the scope. We've had various sessions with community that have really showed that it's a far greater problem with community-based organizations as well as community members. I can share a statistic that 90% of our unhoused relatives are currently unsheltered in LA County, meaning they're not receiving shelter through LAHSA, which is a really devastating statistic. So I'm really pleased to share, though, that 3 Native serving organizations as of the last 6 months have been connected directly to the coordinated entry system. And so that, for the folks who aren't familiar, that is that is how you get into beds in LA County, is the coordinated entry system. So having Native organizations who have that direct referral ability is huge. But the exact number, we don't have a clear understanding. We know that it's not 500. That's absolutely not it. And we know that, we actually are the most disproportionately impacted of homelessness of any racial or ethnic group. And it's something that the commission has been really working tirelessly on. And if you're interested in any way in being connected to that work, please reach out. We've learned that there's a lot of issues to be addressed. There's the systems issues, getting connected to the systems. We need to build culturally supportive housing like other counties like Maricopa County and King County. But we also need folks to demand and sit at the table. There's a lot of different advisory bodies, community cabinets, councils, and we need folks there who can go and make sure that Native voices are being advocated for and that they are heard. Because we know that decisions will be made in our absence. So if anyone on the line is interested, I'd be more than happy to help connect you with our commissioner who leads that work, Commissioner Dr. Andrea Garcia, and get you involved in any way that you see fit, because it is such a big problem. We need an all hands on deck approach.
So thank you for whoever asked that question. Thank you for that. And that is very important. It just seems like, representation is not quite there, and LANAIC is working really hard to provide that, and all the other Native organizations out there. So thank you for the work that you do, Alexandra. And also thank you for the time that you gave us to, interview with us. So, it's much appreciated. And this is recorded. We'll try to get it loaded onto our page, but it may take a while. But if you're, looking forward to it, you can share with your friends. So they know what LANAIC does. So thank you again for your great work and for taking the time and spending your evening with us. And I hope everyone has a wonderful evening, and I hope you enjoyed this program. But we'll see you at the library when you have time. All right. Have a nice night, everyone.